I stand today to urge my colleagues' support for my amendment to this bill. I appreciate the eloquent arguments made by my friend and colleague, the senator from New York, a moment ago. She's correct to point out that people have suffered as a result of this storm. My heart goes out to them. And any time our fellow Americans find themselves in a position of need, we want to address that situation very carefully and make sure we do the right thing. We make sure that people are not overlooked. As we do that, and especially as we do something like that in the way in which we're being asked to do it here, we must also consider how our actions here might have other implications down the road. We have to stop and consider the fact that we are more than $16 trillion in debt, and that we're adding to that debt at a rate of more than $1 trillion every single year. The amount of money that we spend in interest on our national debt, which now stands at a little above $200 billion a year, is expected to grow significantly in the next few years, such that by the end of this decade, at least, perhaps much sooner, we're likely to be paying close to $1 trillion a year just to pay the interest on our national debt. It's because of considerations like these that we put in place certain spending caps in connection with the Budget Control Act in the summer of 2011. And it's for this same reason that I'm asking that we consider capping, subjecting this same amount, this money that we're being asked to spend here, to the same caps. In other words, what I'm suggesting is that we find a way to offset our spending through this bill by stretching it out over the next 9 years, capping what we spend. In other words, all we have to do to offset what we're being asked to spend here is to cut our discretionary spending by 0.5% over the next 9 years. I think that as we look at our economic realities, we look at the fact that it's going to be very difficult in coming years for us to fund everything that we need to do through the federal government. This is the approach that we've got to take with regard to new spending. So when we're being asked to spend money, regardless of how important the cause, to the tune of more than $50 billion in one fell swoop, I think we owe it to the good people of the United States of America, the good people who depend on so many things that the federal government does, things as wide-ranging as defense at one end of the spectrum and entitlements at the other end of the spectrum and everything in between. We owe it to them to consider how our actions today might forestall, might complicate, might impair our ability to fund those programs down the road. It's for this reason that I think we need to offset this spending, and we can do it by cutting only 0.5% of our discretionary spending over the next 9 years. For that reason, I urge each of my colleagues to support this amendment. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield back the floor.